They're loving it. So, accidentally, that episode was introduced as the first episode, but that's the third episode, right?
Third episode. In fact, right now you were missing the first episode at home.
Yeah, that's it. We're all recording it, am I right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. So, for those of you, is there anybody here who's not familiar with the Cosmos series?
Security, could
familiar?
you take them out right now? Yeah.
So, just briefly, Neil, would tell everybody about two things. The habitable zone, which by episode...
You're just getting right in.
Which by episode 3, you guys throw around the phrase habitable zone like it's day at the office.
So, think of Goldilocks, all right? The porridge was too cold or too hot, and then one of them was just right, and the bed was too soft. And
was there a wolf?
Not in that one.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
Bears.
Bears.
Yeah.
And they spoke very well.
Get your mammals straight, yeah. And I'm pretty sure the bears came home and ate Goldilocks in the original version. But
understandable, really.
Right.
If you want your porridge.
Right. So there is this zone around any star where if you are too close, then liquid water would evaporate. If you're too far away, then your liquid water would freeze. And water being so crucial to our understanding of life as we know it, if you're going to look for a planet in search of life like us, you would look for planets in the habitable zone. And I think of it as the Goldilocks zone. And if a star gets hotter, it'll still have a Goldilocks zone, it'll just be different. It'll be like farther away.
So it's generally accepted that to have living things, you got to have a solvent, right?
Yeah, I mean, and water it's three atoms. It's a 3-atom molecule. And so it's one of the most common 3-atom molecules in the universe. So it's not a stretch to want to have water on your planet.
It's not a stretch.
No.
Some people say chlorine. I say no. Then the second question I have.
Well, there's vastly more hydrogen and oxygen than chlorine.
Oh, man. Tell me about it.
That's what I'm just saying.
No, there is. And the other amazing thing, water is symmetrical this way, but not this way. It's polar, has polar like magnets this way, but not this way. And so it has these spectacular properties. Frozen water floats. Frozen lead does not, for example. The solid lead sinks in liquid lead, for example. But second question for you, and then we'll get started. Tell us about the ship of the imagination.
It's badass. What can I tell you? Yeah. That's all you got to say about it. It's badass.
So it's this sleek.
Yeah. So the ship of the imagination is a.
First of all, it goes back to Carl Sagan, right?
Yeah. So this is the third incarnation of Cosmos. The first of which was 1980, hosted by Carl Sagan. And they came up with the idea of a ship of the imagination. They didn't want it to be too real, because then you start judging it for how real it is, but you still wanted it to be useful. And on that ship, he had like a control panel and things, and we just got rid of it, all of that. And plus his ship looked like a dandelion spore or seed.
The sphere of dandelion seeds.
No, just one. Well, wrapped around it. That's correct. Exactly. So it was an attempt to sort of show that as something adrift in the wind.
And with great potential.
With great potential, as any seed would be, unless you eat it.
Well, but
this is the thing that vegetarians have this special attraction to the reproductive organs of plants, if you've ever think that through.
Well, and seeds want you, plants that
think
make
about
seeds want you to eat.
Berries, nuts. The plant is just trying to reproduce itself, and you're eating them, okay?
Well, but they're...
If you need an argument against vegetarianism, that would be one of them.
But let's keep in mind...
What?
Keep in mind, the orange tree's got a plan. You take the seed, you take the orange with the seeds, and you go somewhere with the seeds. And you.
I get that. I get that. Unless you chew the seeds or throw them out.
And you know the coffee that goes through the civet. Mm-hmm. I'm digressing a little. But for the hardcore coffee people, they want the coffee bean that has made its way through this mammal. Can I say made its way? Can we say that?
Yeah.
All right,
No.
so
So here's an interesting point about this ship of the imagination. In 2014, Cosmos: A Space-Time Odyssey, I had a conversation with Ann Druyan, who's the sort of the secret sauce that's constant through all three of these incarnations. She's, though not a scientist herself, she is hyper-scientifically literate, and she's also emotionally literate. And if you combine those two, it's particularly potent for storytelling, where you can bring science into the person's sort of soul of curiosity and caring and concern. So there we are, and we're looking at what wardrobe I would have on the ship of the imagination, and I thought, okay, we settled on just a black.
well, we're in New York. It's gonna
Black,
have
yeah,
to
that's
be black.
right. What color do you want? Black. Yes, that's what it is. And
What about off black? Go ahead. I digress.
no, the comparison is off-white and on black. You see that?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I suggested maybe I'd have a little, epaulets or something, or chevrons, or maybe a Starfleet Command logo.
Maybe
something.
a planetary society piece.
Something. And Anne said no. And it took her 10 seconds to convince me no. Because anything I'm wearing on that suit implies that I've been through like Starfleet Academy and you haven't. So therefore, I'm in a place where you cannot be. You're not even allowed. And that puts a gap between me, the host, and you, the viewer. With nothing on me, then I'm just your guide. I'm not in some high, lofty position that you're not. And one of the taglines that repeats in almost every episode is, "Come with me." So that we are together on this journey, and you're not watching me take this journey, we are together. So not only that, the ship has a much bigger exposure to the outside with that sphere in the middle, and the area that wasn't made clear in this episode, but in episode 1 we make it clear, there's an area below my feet. When that opens up, we are looking into the past. And when the ceiling opens up, we're looking into the future. So
Cool.
So the ship is in its own present, but it can move anywhere through time and space, and it can change size. So there's moments
In your imagination.
So that was all real. No, so there's this like 50-foot green screen out the front of the ship, and the visual effects supervisor will take his laser and say, "Neil, look over here. A star just blew up. Now go." Okay, so it's like, okay, I'm cool with that because I'm an astrophysicist and we deal in blown up stars. I'm good there. But when we were smaller and we're in the world of insects, there's a point where I confront a worm, and he says, "Over here, there's a worm."
Not the director said that.
This is the
Not the worm. The worm didn't say.
The worm did not say that. If I was not clear about who uttered this, the special effects supervisor, the visual effects supervisor, said, "Look here, there's a worm," and I don't. So I got to look at photographic references of that worm in order to think about how I might react. So, but for the universe parts, I'm good. I'm good for all of that.
But you had to go bio. You had to go biological.
Yeah, biological and and geological. I needed some visual references to.
So speaking of visual references, the effects are amazing.
Oh yeah. So
Wow, the visual effects. I mean, the thing was spectacular. The stars are in front of you. You're in the stars. You're on the ancient ocean. You're in Polynesia. You're in distant worlds. You're sailing on light. You got it all going on.
Yeah, so the visual effects supervisor, Cosmos, because of its legacy and the fact that people know we're trying to do the right thing by this world, and they're the staffing that came to bring their expertise to this project. They all have pedigree from $100 million Hollywood blockbuster films. And so they're expert storytelling tellers in their craft. So, in fact, our visual effects supervisor, who he's like the head of the National Organization of Visual Effects people.
Who's that?
Jeff Oken
Yeah.
is his name. And the costume designer, her name is Ruth Carter, and she designed like what I'm wearing there. she has an Academy Award for costume design from the Black Panther. So obviously Cosmos was like a weekend task for her relative to outfitting everybody in Black Panther. But if you haven't seen Black Panther, it's on Netflix, by the way. So I'm just saying we got the best of the best to come together for this. And so we should, while we are delighted that we had such expertise, at the end of the day, I'm not surprised it came out that good. Because that's
the visual effects.
Visual effects. And music.
Silvestri, for
yeah, Alan Silvestri, who did Forrest Gump, and he's also doing the Avengers series, right? But he's taking time to devote his creative energies for us. And so this is what made it kind of a special project, really.
And your heart was in it, yes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you feel the universe. And as Carl said...
He calls him Carl. Now, you met Carl. Am I right?
Me and Carl. No. So I've actually, in all fairness to that legend, I've only actually been in his presence about 6 times in my life. So it would be false.
Okay, about 6 is, as we would say algebraically, infinitely more than 0.
Yes.
So
half a dozen times. But it's not like we were beer drinking buddies. I just want to make it clear that in some outlets it describes Carl as being my mentor. Now, any traditional understanding of mentor would actually not apply in this case. So each of those, the first time was all him. He invited me to Cornell after I'd applied to colleges and my application was dripping with the universe, and the admissions office noticed this. They admitted me, but it was still well before you had to decide. And they sent, unknown to me, they sent my application to him. He then wrote a letter, hand-signed, personal letter to me, saying, I see we accepted at Cornell. I'll be happy to, and you like the universe, so do I. If you want to come by, I'll give you a tour of the lab and to help you decide.
Because when you were a kid, you went to Star Camp?
Yeah, I was a nerdy kid. Nerdy in the category of what the stuff I was interested in, not that anyone could really kick my ass, because I was like half of the nerd stereotype, not the other half, okay? But you know what that meant, Bill? I got to tell you this, okay? Back then, it was not uncommon for a boy to want to have superhero powers, because the comic books talk.
Oh, I've grown out of that.
Yeah. So what I wanted to be was defender of nerds, because they were all just beaten up by the football jocks. And so I knew I could hold up against,
the greasers. The greasers.
Against bullies. And so I imagined we'd invent some sort of nerd bat signal, right? It would go up in the clouds. It'd be like digits of pi or something. And that meant there's a nerd in trouble somewhere, and I got to go help them out. So
and then you would kick some ass.
They kick some. That's right. That's right. Plus, I'm old enough to have been formally trained on a slide rule, as are you.
Yes.
My good friend.
I can whip a slide rule pretty good.
Yeah. And so in my high school, which is an entire school of nerds, it was the era where if you had a bigger slide rule, you could make more accurate calculations.
Yes. So
if you walk down the hall,
swinging from
a holster.
Your belt.
I had a leather holster.
Yes.
It was, but anyhow, my point is about Carl Sagan. So the point is, I go up to Ithaca, and he greets me outside. It's a Saturday. It's cold. It's always cold in Ithaca. And he gives me the tour. And I'll never forget this.
Okay? I hope not.
No, this next thing. I'm sitting in front of him across from his desk, and he reaches back, doesn't even look, reaches back, grabs a book, and it's one of his books. He didn't even look. He just grabbed a book. It's a book he wrote, and then he signed it to me. I still have it.
Good.
Okay, and as the day winds down, it begins to snow, as it does so often.
Did you take the bus to get there?
Yeah, I took a bus up to Ithaca, and he said, it's beginning to snow. If the bus doesn't come through, here's my home number. And if the bus doesn't come through, come stay the night with my family. You can leave in the morning. And I told this to some people, and they said, you should just told them the bus didn't come through. That's it. I wasn't that, diabolical. And so to this day, I treat students the way he treated me, because he didn't know I'm a 17-year-old kid from the Bronx. He didn't know me from anything. He just knew that I was interested in the universe, and that mattered to him. So I joke about this. If I'm in my office and a student shows up, I'll say, Barack, I can't talk, I got a student. I'll catch you later. Bye. Come on in. But now I'm at a point where a student comes in, I do the same thing. I reach back for a book, and it's one of my books, and I said,
So, Brother Neil.
Is this, I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's the same
No,
thing.
as a proud big red bear, why didn't you go to
Cornell?
Why didn't you go to Cornell?
Oh yeah, I didn't finish the story. I didn't.
The guy was schmoozing you as hard as he could. Like, doggone, this guy is so into space. He's got his own telescope. He's built his own. He's got a Saturn
I did a lot.
thing on his desk.
I was all in. I was all in.
But no.
In 7th grade shop, again, this is how old I am. That's when they segregated boys and girls. So the boys had shop and the girls had home ec. Okay.
Home economics.
That's this country, by the way. We did that. And so there are all these, for wood shop, we also had metal shop in the second half. For wood shop, they had these pre-made designs for a lamp, where you'd wire it, but you made the lamp. And I said, I don't want to use any of those designs. I want to make my own damn lamp. So I designed a lamp after Saturn, the planet Saturn. And so I lathed a cube into a sphere, and rings and a base, and up through the middle is a bulb and the lampshade, and you press down the ring and the light turns on.
I've seen it. It really works.
It's been my desk lamp since 7th grade.
It's pretty cool.
In my office to this day.
So Dr. Sagan sees all this, and he offered you a place to stay, and you didn't take him up on it.
No, I wasn't going to lie that the bus didn't get through. I wasn't going to do that.
No, I mean you went.
To go to Cornell. Yeah, so I did. We left that out. So I didn't.
So that's the first time you met Carl.
Oh, first time. Oh, you don't want to hear why I didn't go to Cornell? Okay.
Well, because you went to school in Boston or something.
Well, yeah, it's not as relevant as the story meeting Carl Sagan, but let me tell you how geeky I was.
How geeky were you?
Okay. I had subscribed to Scientific American in middle school, and my favorite part, was that really funny?
It's cool.
And my favorite part then and now is the section called About the Authors. And I just love learning about the life of these people who are scientists writing for the public. And About the Authors, for every author, it would give what college they went to, where they got their master's, where they got their PhD, and where they were on the faculty. So 4 data points. So what I did was I collected 3 or 4 years of astronomy and physics articles, and then made a grid of where those authors went to school, where they were masters, where they PhD, and where they were professors. And then I made a grid of that with what schools I had the option to attend. And
this is how nerdy you were.
Yeah, I said this would be an objective way to arrive at this answer, uncontaminated by human emotion. So I still have this sheet of paper, and I put a check in it, in all the boxes, and by the time I was done, Harvard, the list for Harvard was like 3 or 4 times larger than the next institution that I had been accepted to. And I thought to myself, okay, if I go to Cornell, I'm attracted by one guy, and suppose he's cherry-picked by some other institution and leaves. This happens. Faculty can move from one institution to another. So I would have attended a school pivoting on the existence of one person, whereas the fuller list of people I thought was a statistically safer option. And I would later realize, not at that time, that the reason why they had so many is because the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory of the government is co-located with the Harvard College Observatory, and they're all in that accounting. So nonetheless, it's still a larger collection of people, so that if I don't know what I want to specialize in yet, the options are there. So
Once you get to astro and physics, many would think that you'd specialize.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, subfields within.
Yeah.
So I attended Harvard instead of Cornell.
Yeah, that's more power to you.
Right.
So I've heard good things. I heard it's a good.
Heard a couple good things. Yeah. Okay, good.
Didn't really have an engineering school back then, but it was. I mean, they get by. So
a few engineers.
So with that said,
sorry, that was the first time. Second time.
No, that's yes.
I'll go through fast. It'll be fast. I know it doesn't sound that way, but a second time he came to Harvard and gave a public talk, and
He got to meet you.
I attended, and I came up to him after, but he didn't remember me. That was fine. He's like a zillion people, and this is 4 years later, 3.5 years later. So I didn't expect that, but I reminded him of it. And he was glad to see that, things were going fine. And then, like a couple more times, and then he selected me to be on a NASA committee to help decide what the future of NASA might be for NASA's intersection with the public. Is NASA just doing its own thing, or is NASA a reflection of the ambitions of a nation? And so they gathered all these educators together in one place. And I was very honored and privileged to have been added to that list. And it was the first time I was in the company, you might have even been there, Bill, of like really top-notch educators. And I'm listening to them go around the table, and I count myself among, on the articulate side of a fence, and I'm in that room, and I am a bungling, drooling, inarticulate person because of just the talent, the writing talent, the speaking talent, the educational expertise that had been collected there. And I saw that there was still more for me to ascend on this.
As an educator.
As an educator, correct. As an educator. And the last time I saw him, I attended his 60th birthday party at Cornell. And there were all these testimonies to him, and it was almost absurd how much praise he was getting. They were reading letters from the depths of Africa, where someone in the village, there was one TV in the village, and he would go watch, and the kid
Cosmos,
wants to become a scientist, and then they invited him to the thing. And there he shows up in his native garb, and letters from around the world in different languages and gifts. And I said to myself,
Neil,
I know this guy, and Carl Sagan, he's a good guy, but nobody deserves this much praise. Then I said this to myself, this can't be.
He's not a real person.
This is not real. Thank you. This is not real. Then he gave a public talk that evening, where all the invited came plus the public in your big theater in Cornell campus. What is it?
Yes, Bailey Hall.
A huge theater.
Yeah.
And he gave a talk, and it was the single greatest talk I've ever seen before or since. And I said, he deserves every bit of what I just saw.
So that's why you took this gig, to make season 3.
Thanks for asking that. I don't like doing things that I know other people can do, because let them do it. I'll find something that no one else can do, and I'll do that. I think that's a more efficient infusion of talent into the world. If you give the world what you can do and no one else can. And so I said there's 20 people who could and would want to host this. I don't need to. Then I thought about when I first met him, and I thought about my thoughts about him. And I said, if I host this, I can bring some of that to this, some of that reflective respect and honor. And I was asked by Ann Druyan, would I consider it? And I had to think, I had to think about it. I didn't want to I had to think about it. And I said, I wanted to know that I could do a good job. And I said, I can do this. Thank you. It will be an honor.
So for those who don't know, Ann Druyan was Sagan's wife and now his widow. And she's the head writer for the season 3.
And season 2, co-writer with Carl Sagan and a friend and colleague of mine, Steve Soter, for season 1. And Steve Soter also co-wrote the second season as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's your colleague at the
American Museum of Natural History.
Natural History.
There, yeah.
So you brought together some people who've thought deeply about the cosmos and
oh yeah,
and as we say, our place within it. But what is it that led us to the titles to the title Possible Worlds?
Oh, you know, every time I even see that title, I well up a little bit because it's filled with so much hope. And there hasn't been a lot of hope lately, you know, in the world.
And thank you all for coming, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you heard about this, but through evolution, we are competing with a member of the domain Vera. And in Old Latin, by the way, there was no plural, apparently, for the word virus. But we are competing with something that thinks nothing about taking any of us out. So I really appreciate you all coming out tonight. You know, take precautions. It's not clear. It's not.
In fact, can I read a tweet that I posted just a couple of minutes?
Sure, in just a moment.
Yeah, okay. Take me a second to bring it up. Yeah,
I will
keep
fill
going.
while you seek your tweet.
Come on.
He's a tweet seeker.
Yeah.
That it is sobering to think that the reason we're all here is because our ancestors, our recent ancestors, lived through the Spanish flu in 1918, which killed, it's estimated, 50 million people.
As many as all of the First World War.
Well, twice.
Yeah.
Double the casualties in the First World War.
Sorry, it equaled the casualties of the second, right.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Sure. Either way, it's bad.
Yeah, bad.
But because of our more advanced or more prevalent knowledge of evolution and science and medicine, I think it's quite reasonable that we can all get through this because we will wash our hands. And this is a real thing. No, but it's not being facetious. And so I like to remind everybody that in the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the U.S. Constitution, it refers to the progress of science and useful arts. And there is for me
That's something worth funding.
There is for me a deep irony in that this same nation which created NASA and led to Neil's prominence is a nation that's going through a period of anti-science. And you, Neil, have spent quite a bit of time dealing with people who actually seem to believe that the world might be flat. And that is an amazing thing in the world's most influential culture. Neil, take it on the tweet.
Yeah. So I have 2 coronavirus tweets, in case just to catch you up on that. 2 weeks ago, in what became one of my 10 most liked tweets, because you can put a little heart sign next to it. It became one of the 10 highest ever. It was a simple tweet. It was like, I wonder what anti-vaxxers would say to a coronavirus vaccine. That's all. That's all it was. It was like, I just put it out there. And it went viral. Okay, so.
But that's where the word viral comes from.
Yes. So.
We don't just circle back and touch base and manage our digital content.
Right. So
Viral.
This is my second tweet. I have a third I might post tomorrow.
Well, let's get to it.
Okay, no, here it is. This was inspired by a conversation I had with Steve Soter.
My beloved Steve Soter.
A co-writer of 1980 and 2014. So here it is. And I show the image of the high-res image of the. Looked kind of pretty, but it's nasty.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. Like an invasion of hostile space aliens, COVID-19 is an enemy of the human species that won't negotiate. It cares not of your nationality, ideology, politics, or religion. This enemy of us all requires a global effort to combat, guided by science, and not by magical thinking.
So, if I were to read that tweet, would it have all that drama?
Oh,
I hope so.
Okay, sometimes people say, I read that tweet in your voice. They say that
cool.
often.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Neil, that's cool.
Yeah, it is kind of, yeah.
But everybody keep in mind, although it may not, the virus may not have regard for your nationality, it almost certainly has regard for your genes, for your ancestry. And so when we go to create, and I say we, our tax dollars go to create a vaccine for this thing, it won't be the bad old days of seeing whether or not a milkmaid got cowpox and therefore did not acquire smallpox. It will be because of genetic sequencing. And this is really an extraordinary time. And so speaking of your buddy Barack.
Plus, vaccine, the very word comes from cow.
Yeah,
in Latin.
there you go.
Vaca,
yeah.
vaccine.
So speaking of your buddy Barack, federal employee, Obama. Yeah,
that Barack, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, he pointed out, and then we're going to get back to this next question. He pointed out that if you couldn't pick when you would be born, rather, I just messed it up. If you couldn't pick where you were going to be born, you couldn't pick where you were going to be born on Earth, and we're going to constrain it to Earth, but you could pick when, this would be the time. As bad as everything sometimes seems to be, this actually, for most people in the world, things are less messed up than ever.
Yeah.
There are fewer people in extreme poverty. If you're born even in the poorest part of Africa, for example, there's a chance that your kids will do better than you did, which is everybody's dream, right? And so, Neil, if you would.
Can I add to that?
Well, here's what I want you to do in the context of Cosmos is part of the reason you took the job was because of your optimism.
Yes, I'm a realist-leaning optimistic. And the optimism, I think, it's a future thing by the nature of the word. And this idea about when would you be born, if you can imagine a time machine and you could go forward.
That time machine was freaking cool, I might say.
So imagine you can go forward or backward into time.
Because we get to go forward.
Yeah. But this one, like in the end, come back in this. Okay.
We do get to go forward.
So
once.
Here's the thing. If you really think about it, no matter what the issues are today that we face, if you are black, female, trans, queer, gay, or of color, there is no time in the past where you are better off than in the present. Think about that. Just think about that. What, do you want to go back 10 years and you're trans? No, that's not going to work. You're going to go back 20 years and you're female? No, that's not going to work. You're going to go back 50 years and you're black? No. But if you're white male, the whole thing is ready for you.
Yes, it is.
The whole time.
Neil, it's
so this is just the reality of
so I'm doing my best, people.
Yeah.
Playing the hand I was dealt. And to speak, no, seriously.
Yeah. So I mean, just think of the absence of freedoms and rights and dignity and what people have fought to achieve and
this highlights for me the importance of empathy. By the way,
right. By the way, and all the things with Elizabeth Warren and like losing Massachusetts, like what was up with that?
Well,
but ask her, would you rather do all of this 10 years ago? And like, no. So we're still struggling in the present, but the hope comes for how much more change we know we may have the power to implement, and Cosmos, especially Possible World, which is not just about exoplanets. Of course, there's some of that. This one we might go to and not that one. After the sun dies, we got that, okay? But Possible Worlds is also what Earth could be like in the future. We're in the middle of the Anthropocene, A new geologic era that the geologists are forced to have to put in their chart because humans, it has been established that since the dawn of agriculture, humans have changed the shape of this earth in fundamental ways, and we have left our mark.
Testify, Brother Neil.
We have
Testify.
left our mark.
Anthropocene.
We have exacted a wave of extinction across the tree of life that rivals the extinction that occurred 65 million years ago with the asteroid that took out the dinosaurs. It is extinction happening at the hand of humans. So this is addressed here in the halls of extinction. There's a whole episode where we revisit the halls of extinction.
Hang on.
Oh. And so you want to talk about hope. Hope is not, we're all going to die, give up. No, hope is, here's the path, here's a future world on Earth that is the consequence of inaction. Here's another one, it's a consequence of action, but the wrong action. Here's one where, hey, this is a direction that explicitly recognizes that we are not separate and distinct from the biosphere. We are a participating member.
We're a product of evolution. And it is, everybody, it's important to keep in mind, before we go too far, that farming, and you talked about the dawn of agriculture, reckoning about 10,000 years ago. Farming is not natural. If you stop
at all.
If you stop farming, it goes back to prairie, forest, marshland, whatever the heck it was. And so this is an extraordinary time, and I hope you will comment on this, that we are in charge. Humans are in charge of this whole planet. You can get on a plane.
I think your bacterial gut might have something different to say about that, because they decide how often you go to the bathroom. So I think...
Well, we've taken a meeting, and we have achieved a compromise.
Okay, all right, you've got a good relationship with your bacteria.
Very good. Yeah, I don't want to give you too much information, but things are fine. So along that line, it is important, I feel, for everybody when he or she watches Cosmos to think about this literally globally, that humankind is now running the show. We probably didn't intend to be, but now we're in charge. And thinking about other worlds and going there is, you can't help it. It's just human nature to imagine what it would be like.
Every episode is infused with hope, especially the last one where I well up even just remembering filming it. And I haven't re-seen it, but that's...
Where was it? What happened? Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, okay. So Andrian remembered that Carl Sagan attended the 1939 New York World's Fair at age 5 in the fairgrounds, the Flushing Meadow. I attended the 1964 World's Fair at age 6.
I was age 8. I was.
In the fairgrounds. When you attended?
When I attended.
And
New York. The town's so nice, they named it twice. I was so excited.
In both World's Fairs, there was a heavy investment in imagining what the future would be. And both Carl Sagan and I, surely millions of others, were deeply influenced by that hopeful vision of what a wise application of science and technology could bring to a future world that we could all be proud to bequeath to our descendants rather than embarrassed by what it is we had done that they end up inheriting. And so she said, let's continue with this theme. And the 13th episode is an imagined 2039 World's Fair, still back in New York. I mean, why not? So that's 100 years from the 1939 World's Fair. And so now we have to imagine the future that is 2039, and then imagine the future that they imagine. So we have a double-nested future episode. And it is just so filled with hope that I come out of that, and it's like, I got to do something. I've heard people say, yeah, I don't like the world where it's going to, I don't want to live in that world. Well, fix it. It's our collective world, okay?
So
you're not powerless.
So speaking of powerlessness, people say to me, Neil, no, they say, Bill, Nye, science guy, what can I do about climate change? And we have this perception that...
Got a whole book on climate.
Well, sure I did. And there's 20 in a carton. They make great gifts. The equinox is coming up in just a week and a half. So, I think you have 19 friends. So people say, what can I do? And we were brought up, people of our age were brought up with the idea of please don't litter. Every litter bit hurts, and so on. And so we have a perception that if we just recycle our water bottles, everything will be cool. It'll be great. Just recycle, don't litter, don't throw your water bottle away. But my friends, climate change is a huge problem, and it's going to take big ideas. And so the first thing you can do is talk about it with everybody. If we were talking about climate change the way we're talking about, what are we talking about? Coronavirus. We're talking about whoever the acting blank of blank is this week. Who's acting. No, we're really. If we were talking about it at that level, we'd be getting her done. So if you don't do anything else, please vote. Vote. And if you don't want to vote, then would you just shut up and let the rest of us who want to do things do it? So along this line, Neil, in 2039 at the World's Fair, what huge ideas, what giant problems have been solved?
Well, there's a lot of speculation there. So,
yeah, really?
Yeah. So one of them is we have these world ice sculpture contests where they would make colossus sized sculptures, as the original Colosseum was named from the Colossus.
So how tall is the Colossus?
They
7
would be,
stories?
I don't know, 12 stories.
12 stories.
Yeah,
12 stories.
12 to 20 stories around there.
100 meters.
It would be really big. And it would be about 100 to 200 meters.
It's a soccer field on its side.
Yeah. This is America, Jack. Football field on its side. Okay? No.
I don't know how long people are going to be playing football.
Yeah, well,
as science reveals some of the issues.
They'll figure out something.
But go ahead. So there it is, Colossus, made of ice.
Right. No, it's not made of ice. We're imagining a future where we have active CO2 atmospheric scrubbers, where air blows through it, the CO2 is recaptured, and basically we make limestone blocks
from scratch.
Yeah, basically from scratch.
From the air.
And we have complete control of this. Is a level of geoengineering that allows us to not become victims of our own absence of foresight, that we can control that. And so we shouldn't demonize the consumption of energy. You demonize the consequence of consuming some kinds of energy relative to others. And you want to build in solutions to that if, in fact, you found no other solution. And by the way, another point, 2 points, is Cosmos is not preachy. All right? There's a lot of strong ideas coming across the screen that are not hitting you on the head. It's an offering. And you come and share it with us, and it might hit different people in different ways. Science fans, we know we've got you. People who didn't know they like science, they're new to the table.
Who doesn't like science?
Okay.
Especially when you want a vaccine.
That's right. Exactly. And then I talk often about this subset of people who know they don't like science, so they're actively against science. And I think there's enough visual splendor in this that you could be attracted, if for no other reason than for that.
Because it looks so beautiful. It really does, Neil. You should be so proud just right there.
There are multiple ways that you can get absorbed into it. And the animations are reserved for the historical storytelling. And first, it's cheaper than assembling Polynesians and canoes in the Pacific. and filming that. So, but we have the.
It's a little bit cheaper. No, how many people were involved?
In the animation?
It was in the whole production.
The whole production, thousands. Yeah,
thousands.
All the countries that we were in.
Yeah. How many countries did you visit? 70?
I lost count. No. But the most remote we went was China, pre-virus. China.
You saw the biggest
telescope in the world is now in China. Used to be in Puerto Rico. That telescope has now been bested. It is in China. And if aliens were going to speak to us in radio waves, and we're going to pick out the signal from the din of cosmic noise, the telescope best equipped to do that is in China. So aliens, the first humans they will speak to will be Chinese astrophysicists.
Something to consider for taxpayers and voters. It is. So when you had thousands of people working on it,
it's thousands.
How many years did you work on
it? All told, I would say, it's scattered into the calendar.
Year and a half?
I would say, between 1 and 2 years. But Anne was out there much earlier. She's thinking up these stories and
along with Brannon Braga.
Right? And Brannon Braga, who's also a director and co-writer.
He did the Star Trek movies, so
he's involved in the Star Trek movies. He was much bigger role in the Star Trek: The Next Generation. No. He's a storyteller and thinks about hopeful futures, such as a recurring theme in the Star Trek science fiction series. So all combined, we're all quite proud of this. And I know this is cliche, but I think it's really true. This is by far the best of the three. Just for sheer magnitude of science and mess. There's a whole episode where we go inside the quantum and we learn the value of the quantum as it applied to modern society. But who's ever visualized the quantum before? We're on the scale of quantum physics and the particles popping in and out of existence. This was something that the visual effects person, it says, well, how do I do this? Am I improving on something that happened before? No, you're pulling this out of new places because this falls entirely out of our senses. So you have to look at what the math says and turn that into visualizations.
Which you feel you did.
Yeah, oh yeah, I feel very good about it.
So you would go to China. What would you do?
I went to China. We were reckoning all the countries.
What would be a day in Neil's life?
Oh, so, excuse me. So we fly into...
Did you see that? You saw that? So by the way, it's apparently it doesn't kill everybody. So we can hope that most of us will just develop antibodies and carry on. That is to be hoped. But that aside, Neil, you were clearing your throat.
Yes, clearing my throat.
I made a joke, but you were talking about something serious that many people wonder about. What was a day like of production?
So a day like, well, it depends whether you're on set or whether you're on location. On location, you get your call time, and because the camera sets up and the lighting sets up and the sound and everything else, and I'm reviewing the scripts that morning. I also carry the title as executive science editor, so I'm the last gate before the science of the show comes out of my mouth. And for areas of the science that are outside of my expertise, we had panels of other scientists who reviewed scripts for their accuracy. But then there's the storytelling has to sort of emphasize it the right way. Sometimes it doesn't. You make adjustments. Anyhow, so I'm reckoning the script because everything has to hit so that it later matches the visualizations of all the scenes. And this telescope, by the way, is 1 mile in circumference. That's how big it is. And
so what is that? What's the diameter? A third of that?
Yeah, divide by pi. Yeah.
So it's 1,000 meters or something like that.
Yeah, it's a 500 meter.
Half a kilometer.
Yeah, half a kilometer across. Yeah. Right. So it's called the FAST telescope. The 500-meter aperture spherical telescope. Spherical is the shape of the curve. It's a section of a sphere for optical reasons. But anyhow.
As opposed to a parabola.
As opposed to a parabola.
So is the Arecibo telescope. It's a sphere. So then the focus, instead of being a point, is a line. And this actually makes it more versatile.
Just a little thing about this telescope is it's in a crater, so it's you can't steer it.
You're
That's how
talking about
large
in
it is.
China?
Yeah, in China.
Same with Arecibo and
It's
Puerto
so large you can't steer it.
It's how large
So you
is
think,
it?
well, that means you can only look in one place. Not for this telescope.
Oh, no, my friends.
No. So if there's an object over here, they take this section of the dish and they have actuators on it and they reshape it to become a section of a telescope that's pointing in that direction.
It's a cool trick.
It is brilliant. Brilliant. It's got all these but anyhow, so I'm driven to where we go. We practice the lines, look at the posting of where I'm going to stand if I'm walking, and I got to make sure I don't trip of where I'm going to step because I'm looking up at the camera. And all of this, I think actors do this all the time, but for an academic, it's all quite novel to me and fun. It's fun novel. But anyhow, so then we do the scene, and then there's a downtime, and they set up, and they bring you food, and then another scene, and
they bring the food.
The scene's assembled, and then we brought in the drones.
The drones are cool.
Drones are cool. We sent a drone into the middle, and then it just ascended, and then the dish, and you see and you can't.
So rest assured, I did a lot of drone shooting on this film, and the guy driving the drone, is 22. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And he makes his own custom camera holding parts on his 3D printer at home. Don't worry. That's who's driving the show now. It was cool. So those shots are beautiful.
Yeah. So multiple countries, and some is green screen, obviously plunging into the
realm of a weather.
They're obviously green screen ones, but
broadcaster.
for on location shots, some of them were green screened. But most of them are not, so you're not distracted by wondering whether anything.
So when you
I
was just going to ask you, did you get disoriented looking at green screens? Because when they're big, so you can. This is a special color that was developed many years ago, but you can replace anything that's that color with another bit of video, and that's how traditionally the weather map is done.
I think that color was chosen because no one would wear clothing that color.
And nobody's eyes were that color. So the myth that is promoted to young television people is that Walter Cronkite's blue eyes obviated the chance of using a blue screen. So this is the myth they tell you. So
people who
it's
Walter
crazy
Cronkite is.
chartreusey color.
Okay, everyone
But anyway,
under 50, Walter Cronkite is who?
Oh, it's Walter Cronkite was the very popular television. He was the kind of the guy that the word anchor was invented for. And if you see footage of humans landing on the moon on July 20th, 1969, he's the guy that takes his glasses off and shakes his head. Oh my goodness, this really happened. It's quite a scene. And the reason you want somebody on television that reacts that way is because the person on television is someone who's taking you on the journey. And that's your job, Neil. And I think you did a fabulous job. So go get them. Make mistakes and carry on.
Make mistakes and recover from them.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. A hand for Neil, a hand for Cosmos. And thanks to the 92nd Street Y for including us this late. Take care, everybody. Wash your hands.